Welcome back to Third Phase of Moon. Blake Cousins here. We got a special report for you, and we appreciate everybody joining us from around the world. It really means a lot, and we appreciate the support with that thumbs up and all the support that you guys give us on a daily basis. It really means a lot. We know that we're on the front line on this information, and we've been hearing a lot of talk in regards to Dr. Stephen Greer. Behind the scenes, they don't want to mention his name, but we all know they're referring to Dr. Greer himself, the man behind Disclosure. Well, he started it off with the Disclosure Project, and that was a major event, but he's got some new things on the horizon coming up, including our new documentary that's about to drop called Above Top Secret, the technology behind Disclosure. And it is a wild ride. You're going to see Dr. Greer like never before, and he engages some of the dialogue in regards to the responses of this invitation to have a debate and much, much more. You're going to see Dr. Greer in Above Top Secret, the technology behind Disclosure, like you've never seen Dr. Stephen Greer before. But what we have for you tonight is quite incredible. He's got some statements that he wanted to bring out of what he's going to be doing in the next month. And we're going to be in close collaboration with Dr. Stephen Greer in regards to the CE5 phenomenon and the people that are involved with it. It's going to be very, very exciting. But what he has to say in regards to what's going on right now is quite impressive. Guys, listen to this. We have full permission from Dr. Stephen Greer to share this right here on Third Phase of Moon. Guys, listen up, and I want to get your thoughts.
They've been knocking on our front door, back door, side door for decades now, since the atomic bombs first went off, wanting to get an appropriate, peaceful response from humans. And they have not gotten that, not even to this day. And the CE5 Contact Initiative, when I founded it in 1990, with the purpose of it was this concept of the everyday man on the street, woman on the street, becoming a liaison from humanity to these extraterrestrial civilizations, because the governments of the world have badly dropped the ball on this. And it's been, unfortunately, because of secrecy, been relegated to illegal covert programs that have made a complete mess of it. So this is where the responsibility for we the people steps in, not just for our own planet, our own country, but more importantly for the future of humanity and its relationship with these other interstellar civilizations. And that time has really come where we can potentiate this. The technologies we have now with the internet and various social media platforms and the ability to webinar events gives us the ability to really expand the reach and organizational abilities of a CE5 initiative. And the contact that's happening, I think, all over the world that I'm hearing about from team members is actually going up a lot, because I think there is this quickening, let's call it, this awakening and deeper consciousness, and knowledge is potentiating it. It's very powerful, and the more that people do it, the more it signals, let's say, it conveys to the ETs that are watching this planet with increasing concern as we increasingly weaponize space, that there are people on the planet who are enlightened, are awake, are peaceful, are not filled with superstitious ideas about this issue, and are willing to put themselves out there to make contact. They're wanting us to do this because who else is doing it? State Department isn't, the United Nations isn't, although we've recommended that they do so. I don't know of any leader around the world that has a team set up making any kind of intelligent approach, and or any parliament or Congress. So in the absence of that, my friends, guess what? It's you and me. People say, who's going to do this? I say, go look in the mirror. You look in the mirror. You want to see who's responsible? It's each and every one of us. And I think that's where, for a lot of people, they go, "Whoa, I'm not. I don't know if I'm ready for that." I say, "Well, we need to be ready because time is of the essence." Well, this is why I loved it when Dr. Targ is setting Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. He says, "Yeah, everyone's mystified this, but it goes back to ancient, the earliest recorded history of humanity. That by virtue of being a conscious, awake, sentient being, every single human can do this. We've sort of made it the domain of the mystics and the gurus or the priesthood or what have you. And I think that's just, frankly, an abuse of power by people who want to aggrandize themselves, frankly. And I've always said, no. I mean, if you're a human being or an ET, you're conscious. And you can be aware of that conscious field, which is what the meditative techniques facilitate experiencing. From there, you can see any place, be anywhere, know any discrete thing. We'll get into this during this conference in the ancient Vedic concept of Ritambara Pragya, it's called. This level of consciousness that's very encoded in the consciousness field where all knowledge, all events, all specific needed information is located. It's like the ultimate cosmic supercomputer or AI, but it's that field of consciousness. But there is a level of it that you can tap into. And a study just came out that said that 15 seconds in what's psychologists call the hypnagogic state, where you're like, when you're going into sleep and you're just in that state between awake and sleep, that 15 seconds in there vastly increases people's creative abilities and et cetera and so on. Now, all the remote viewing experts know that in that state is when the best images and remote viewing, and I've said this for years, you're going deep and you're not so focused like we are now in the normal waking conscious state, but you're not also in the darkness of sleep. It's that in-between deep state. Now, the meditative state can take you there and keep you there. But this study found that 15 seconds of experiencing that hypnagogic state has this enormous increase in the individual mind's capacity for creative thinking, problem solving, all kinds of virtues. It's an amazing study that just came out in the last couple of weeks. So I think the more we understand the science of consciousness and its benefits, the more we're going to be able to transform the planet, because I think that the root of the problem is really deeply based in true spiritual crisis, not religious, and the understanding of deep consciousness, higher states of consciousness, and deep spirituality, what I call original spirituality. It's universal as opposed to the trappings of organized religions and traditions, but which have their place. But I think that if we begin to look at this in a more universal way, the universality of mind and consciousness and heart and being sentient and awake, and then begin to realize that those states of meditative states, and even when you're going to sleep at night, or beginning to enter into a lucid dream, that there are amazing capabilities that are in that subtle, very quiet aspect of mind where entire dimensions and the universe can open up to you, and knowledge. It's the wellspring, by the way, of all science and arts also. That level of consciousness is the point of inspiration, where people figure out, have inspiration, where inventions are discovered, where art and beauty, all of that is in that aspect of consciousness. We're going to talk about this on this long weekend together out in Arizona in April. When the community moved to create, unfortunately, a counter narrative for disclosure that had to do with it being a national security threat, et cetera, and so on. And, of course, people have heard me talk about that. The good news is that this message that the UFOs are real, that they're not fictitious, it's been confirmed by the Pentagon, what have you, even though that has happened within the context of it being spun by the spin meisters out there as a national security threat. I mean, every article in New York Times, CNN, Fox, every media around the world, the Sunday Times of London, have always included that as the narrative. We don't know what they are. That's a big lie. They're not ours. Another big lie. And they're a threat to the national security. So, unfortunately, this is the information that the members of Congress that we've been reaching out to are getting. Because the foxes guarding the hen house from these unacknowledged special access projects, these secret projects, have their acolytes and their minions in the staffers' offices, in the SCIF, the Secure Communication Information Facility, where they get briefed. The senators and congressmen get information on this. And every single, and this is without exception, because I know who they are, every single person in there who are briefing the members of Congress, and the president for that matter, are either misinformed or deliberately disinforming intentionally the members of Congress. Now, this is an issue because in the last few months, there are senators and congressmen calling for a permanent office in the Congress to study this. The Pentagon has just announced ahead of that they're opening up an office to study what is now called the new fake term of the month of UAPs. That's replacing UFOs, that replaced flying saucers, is what they were used to be called back in the 50s and 60s. So I think that because of that, there is a huge momentum of people. We've now identified about 15 members of the Senate and House who are actively interested in this. But we got to be able to reach them on a sustained level. Mm-hmm. Now, back when we did this, a little bit of history for everyone. In the 90s, we were working the system sort of behind the scenes, and everyone knows this story. Project Starlight, the predecessor to Disclosure Project, as an emergency doctor, I was shuttling up to DC and other places to brief members of Congress, the president's people, the CIA director, what have you. And our hope then was that those people, having been deeply briefed on the issue, would do the right thing. They wouldn't. They were scared to touch this. They were threatened, warned off, waved off. Now that these covert programs have pulled the trigger and said, oh, it's okay to study this, and everyone can talk about it, we're going to normalize it through the media, because the big mainstream media take their marching orders from these operatives. That's absolutely true. But you have to talk about it in these certain way. It's certain sort of spin. It's a threat. What's the threat to the national security? We don't know what they are. We're going to call them some made-up name, unexplained aerial phenomenon. Rubbish. They're not unexplained. They're not just aerial, and it's not a phenomenon. A phenomenon is a bolide or ball lightning or something. What I found is that persistent talking point isn't going away. It's getting deepened in the last month or two. And I think that what I've observed from being on the inside of this and having a place in DC is that in order to get the access persistently, we're going to have to do something different. Now, in 2001, when we did the National Press Club event, I tell this story with trepidation. Somebody who I knew very well came up to me at the conference we held the next day after the press conference. And he said, how much money can you give these members of Congress and senators? I said, what does that have to do with the price of tea in China? He says, you have to have influence, and you have to provide money to their campaigns, and you have to set up events for them. I said, well, we're not set up to do that. This is a nonprofit, and we're just. He says, they're not going to listen. Now, I thought that was a terribly ugly and cynical comment. And it was, but it also happens to be terribly true. So today, we have filed an organized disclosure PAC, Political Action Committee, nonpartisan. We're going to organize to support people who are supporting real disclosure and not alien invasion disclosure. We're going to set up events where they can be educated and supported, and that is being formed. I've never done this. We're going to see how it applies. We have a very substantial group in Washington who will be facilitating the logistics of this. So you will be hearing about this in the coming days, but this is going to be a permanent fixture in Washington. And it's called Disclosure PAC, PAC, Political Action Committee. Now, not at all partisan. Doesn't matter if you're left, right, center, independent, libertarian, a socialist. It doesn't matter. Because what we're finding is, and I said this back in 1992, 93, 94, when we got involved with the Clinton White House and what have you, this issue transcends all lines politically. It should never be partisan. And luckily, the senators and congressmen working the issue currently, even though they're being misinformed, have said the same thing. This is not a left right. This goes way over or transcends the normal fracture lines, left, right, what have you. So that's how this is going to be conducted. It will absolutely never be partisan. So those of you who are partisan in your views on things, sorry to tell you, this is going to be completely nonpartisan, not bipartisan, nonpartisan. But the purpose of it is to formalize a long-term educational effort to not only educate, but also encourage through support those members of the Senate, Congress, or a candidate who really wants to do proper disclosure, which involves a true disclosure that doesn't put us into a conflict-oriented path with these visitors. Number two, discloses the technologies that are being kept secret and are being told to these members of Congress that they're unexplained, when we have people from Lockheed, from other aerospace companies that can go in with me and show them where the man-made UFOs are being built, which, by the way, no member of the Senate or House is briefed on that. So we need to have a presence there, getting ahead of this tidal wave of spin that has captured the disclosure movement in Washington and in the mainstream media. And we need to do it now. I mean, we're running out of time to do it. So that's what that's about. I'm in Washington almost every week, but we need to have a structure around us to legally do this. So that's what we're forming. So that is a very big announcement. It's probably the biggest announcement on this issue in history, certainly more than the Disclosure Project of 2001.
So there it is, Dr. Stephen Greer. There's a lot more to this interview on his channel. We're going to be supplying the original link below so you can listen to this full display of Dr. Stephen Greer on what's coming up next, including the exciting trailer, which will be dropping here very shortly. I think it's going to be dropping this week. The next Dr. Stephen Greer film, Above Top Secret, the technology behind disclosure. It's going to be as big, if not bigger, than the largest, most watched documentary period on Amazon Prime, iTunes, everywhere in 2021. Above Top Secret, the technology behind disclosure. In my opinion, 2022 will break all the records in regards to the phenomenon and anything in regards to the disclosure that we deserve. Everybody, we need to stand up. We need to fight for what this is all about. The technology, we deserve it, and they're hiding it from us. Brett, what's your thoughts on this exciting documentary that we're going to be breaking to the world?
Yeah, Blake, it's something else. We traveled across the state, all the way from Hawaii to California, Tucson, Virginia, Washington, D.C. We talked to some of the boys in this field that pretty much are the front line, the spearhead of disclosure. And we're so excited to be sharing this trailer that's going to be dropping and everything that's coming up with this documentary. Again, Blake, it's going to be, I'm thinking, the biggest doco to drop this year. I just can't say anything more about it because you guys are going to be spellbound when you watch this. You're going to see Greer in a whole new light and everybody else. The information is new, it's present, and it's relevant. What you're going to see in this is, again, something that's going to leave you stunned.
Yeah, I think the goal of making this film above top secret, the technology behind disclosures, to get everybody kind of pissed off, to be frank. There is something that we should demand from our governments from around the world to release this technology to the people. We deserve it. And I think people are going to really feel that when they watch this, that there is something that these governments are aware of, and they're going to hide it from us for some reason, and it's known as greed. With that being said, I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight right here at Third Phase of Moon. We appreciate the support, sharing this link. There is a huge opposition to some of what Dr. Stephen Greer says. We got to remember that this was the man behind the Disclosure Project and speaking his mind. Some of these people are criticizing this guy, but for some reason they don't want to debate him. And that says a lot, in my opinion. And UFO Twitter, let me tell you, they really are suppressing the information in regards to some of the recent UFO videos that have been coming out for a long time now on Third Phase of Moon. Actually, they've been doing it for years now. What's up with at UFO Twitter that they are actually trying to suppress the information coming in from the public? Guys, if you guys could help us out and let UFO Twitter, at UFO Twitter, know that there's information that should be shared by all parties in regards to this phenomenon. Nobody should be shut out. Everybody has a voice. We all do. Thanks, everybody. This is Third Phase of Moon, along with my brother Brent. This is Blake Cousins. We appreciate you very much. We'll see you next time.